Well, we are back and we are with the Conspiracy Keepers, Joe Monaco and Scooter McGee. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Christmas Eve segment of the Conspiracy Keepers. Scooter and Joe, happy Festivus.
Very good. Very good. Good to see you guys again. Always look forward to doing the shows with you. You can enlighten people a little bit. And this time it's about Christmas and its meanings.
Scooter, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe. I stepped on you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just was talking about that we're going to enlighten people about Christmas and its meanings and its origins. It might kind of come as a shock to people what they're celebrating, but that's what we're here for. To surprise you, to inform you, and shock you. Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going.
Well, I know we're going to start things off with the 12 days of Saturnalia, or 12 days of Satan.
Yeah, right.
What are the symbols within the 12 days of Christmas that you guys were talking about?
Well, first of all, I'll let Scooter go into that. I think that he's done a little bit of background on that. But let me tell you what it isn't. What they're telling us it is. They're telling us that the partridge in the pear tree represents Jesus Christ. Oh, how lovely it is. And all these other things about it representing the two gospels and the 12 apostles and everything's so beautiful and nice. It's like, not so much. That's not what it's talking about at all. But Scooter, you were talking a little bit about it last time. We wanted to get into that. Why don't you start off with what the 12 days of Christmas and that song, which nobody really knows who wrote it, as far as I can tell. You know, it's just kind of ambiguous. It's like, where did this song come from? You know, and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, once you start off with that, I want to talk a little bit later on about where the Christmas tree came from and what that means as well.
Well, okay, Joe, I was asking for the listeners because, you know, when we did the first run of this, I know I believe September 11th had happened. So it's in the early 2000s, not the late 90s, when we first did the Conspiracy Keepers and we're on BAI in New York. And I remember in that 13, we laid out what would be the first 13 episodes. And because of the holidays, we did the Christmas show. But again, that was the thing. I didn't remember if it was the 12 days of Christmas per se that had been usurped by the Illuminati or co-opted, or if it was a collage of images that we see. But the infamous where Joe was going of when he's saying, I'll tell you what it doesn't represent, what they say. That's where I wanted Joe to go with, especially, quote, the infamous Christmas tree, the evergreen in the living room Christmas tree. So I'm not trying to be a jerk. I yield back to Joe. Let's talk about the tree.
Okay, let's talk about the tree. Let's talk about the tree and where it came from and its origins. It all goes back to idolatry, really, as to what these people were doing. The same kind of concept that the Israelites had with the golden calf, and they were worshiping all these idols and all this kind of stuff, and they were decorated with silver and gold.
Oh,
and we talk about. Okay, go ahead.
Joe, we're December 22nd.
23rd.
We're the 23rd, sorry, 4:00 in the afternoon. We just had the celestial event of Jupiter and Saturn coming in within a half a degree of one another and appearing as the Christmas star. So make sure we got that in there, but keep going.
Let's talk about Joshua 10:4. They talk about, and they cut down a tree and they decorate it with silver and gold. Do not fear the way of the nations, and the customs of the people are worthless. It's talking about being customs. And their idols that they have, they cannot speak. He specifically talks about people going in and cutting down trees and decorating with silver and gold. It's another way of idolatry. The Christmas tree is like a pyramid with a star on the top. The star is always associated with Lucifer, the fallen star. He was thrown out of heaven. So when you have these occultists, then they use the word star. You'll see this in a lot of different places. People in Hollywood, what do they call themselves when they get to be A-list? And everybody knows who they are. They're a star. And you see it a lot with sports teams. They talk about the Dallas Stars, the Dallas Cowboys. They all like their little stars logo. That's all an Illuminati. It's a design from the Illuminati. That's what they are. That's what Lucifer is. That's what Luciferian is. And these people are all worshiping Lucifer. So that's where the Christmas tree started. And Santa is the same way. They use things with as far as anagrams. Santa is just an anagram for Satan. Santa Claus, you know, they use contractions, means Satan's claws. They want the kids to sit on Satan's claw's lap. You see, the Pope historically has dressed up like Santa Claus. It's kind of the opposite. Santa Claus came as a result of paganism, but that's, you'll see him, he's dressed in this kind of red kind of suit that looks just like Santa with the black boots and all this kind of stuff. So these are all pagan traditions, is where they came from. The Christmas tree, Santa. If you look at who Santa is, Santa has a lot of godlike characters. If you think about the way that they talk about him and they tell him about the kids, it's like Santa Claus. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. That's a godlike characteristic. That only God knows those kind of stuff. You see what they're doing? They're kind of replacing God with Santa. So he's got all these kind of characteristics of God. He gives the children gifts. He wants the children to love him because he gives them gifts. He's the gift giver. So they're actually replacing Christ with Santa or Satan's claws.
Which also basically is what I'm getting out of this from you two is that the powers that be, the New World Order, they want us to worship like pagans.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right.
Because I do know,
and look at some of the
looking through this unbelievable Illuminati symbolism in Christmas, you know, the Bible's book of Jeremiah says not to learn the ways of the heathen, pagans and occultists, and then goes into the decoration of trees that pagans used to do.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right.
So they're worshiping.
And you look at some of these Christmas. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying they're worshiping, instead of God or Christ, worshiping more Mother Earth and
exactly
silver and gold.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. That's exactly right. And look at some of the songs that surround Satan's claws or Santa Claus. You better watch out. You better not cry. Now, why would they start with a song that says you better watch out? Okay, you better watch out. You better not cry. Santa's watching you. He knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. Okay. Yet you think about what they're really teaching you about these kids. They're kind of teaching you to worship him and be afraid of him at the same time. He knows everything about you. He knows when you're being bad. All right. But he gives you gifts. He's a good guy. He comes in place of Christ, is who he is. So, yeah, I know. And a lot of people don't realize that. But it really goes back to pagan idolatry with the Christmas tree. Santa is just a replacing of Christ with another deity, is basically what he is.
And now here's something else that just really made my stomach turn. You guys were talking, you're talking about the Rockefellers and who else?
Yeah.
Rockefellers and who?
The Rothschilds.
So here's the weird one that just absolutely freaked my poop. I'll just be honest about the famous Rockefeller tree that's in Rockefeller Plaza.
Right.
Is around the sunken plaza, which has the statue of Prometheus. And
interesting. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Honors the story of Prometheus, who stole fire of illumination from the gods and gave it to mankind, enlightening them with wisdom. And it says this, it is important to the occult beliefs and Luciferians, as it points out the ability to transform from man to God without the assistance of a spiritual God. Holy crap, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I want to say everything that's in Christmas Vacation right now. That just, and he, I guess it even has a quote of David Rockefeller himself said, some even believe we are part of a sacred cabal working against the best interests of the United States. Characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will.
New World Order.
If that is
Mhm.
the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. End quote. Holy crap.
Yeah, see, there they are again, hiding in plain sight. They're actually telling you what they're about and telling you what they're going to do, which is the occult practice. That's what they got to do. They're telling you beforehand what they're all about. And people just aren't listening. They're not hearing it. But yeah, that's exactly right. The
That's
Christmas
just the
tree in
sound of my
Rockefeller
head.
Plaza.
It's just the sound of my head banging on my desk right now. I don't feel well.
Right.
And Scooter's loving it.
I know.
Yeah, don't smile, Smirky.
Mhm.
Oh
All
my
right.
God.
Go ahead.
Hold on. So Joe has brought up points of order. Well done, by the way, Joe, regarding paganism, hedonism, but a structure that is long before the fat guy, the reindeer, the elves, and the rest of the crack staff. And yet, how it intertwines almost like a caduceus that the cabal or cabals, because there are many cabals that are still serving up towards that point on the pyramid or the capstone on the pyramid. So they talk about globally backlash. I'm paraphrasing what Rockefeller said, but what about the economic and global structure? Is that what is the word I heard right? Structure?
Global, more integrated global political and economic structure. One world,
Okay,
if you will.
right there, right there. You filter that down to what that essence really means. Total control and enslavement of a species with a very select few dictating to the others. So if you think by throwing the Christmas tree out and running this year to Christmas Mass, I bring up Catholicism in particular, it's going to be very interesting to hear what the Pope says this Christmas at Mass, because it's not going to be of a biblical talk and a sermon of the past for us to learn. You're going to hear about climate change, global government. I really fear there is going to be a terror attack at the Vatican during Mass that's going to be blamed on those who are against the vaccine, against government closure, and against wearing masks. I would not see that past them, pushing a global agenda and letting a couple of hundred people inside in the bottom in St. Peter's Square to die from a bomb. Would
Well,
not
that's the way that they
surprise me.
think. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's the way that they think. That's the way they attack themselves and blame it on an enemy. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what they're going to try to do is all the people like us that don't believe in what's going on right now, that expose what it is, they're going to try to make us the enemy. So when they do have these catastrophes and these things that are going on, they're going to say, oh, it's the anti-maskers, it's the anti-vax people, they're behind it. And it's the same thing that Caesar did to get everybody against the Christians. He burned Rome himself, blamed it on the Christians. So he's got this uproar against the Christians so he can feed them to the lions and people think they deserve it. It's the same tactic they've been using for centuries. And the thing about it is, it always works. People keep falling for it.
Well,
forgive me, Backlash. How much time do we have in this segment? I did not see a chat pop up.
I don't see the timeline, and I forgot to start mine, but it should give me a 10-minute. It's going to be a longer segment because this is oh holy nightmare is what I'm saying right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I just didn't want to open a can of worms before we had to go to break.
No.
So I do not wish to put out in the universe of consciousness a terror attack at Rome at the Vatican on Christmas Eve. That is not I'm not calling to arms action, none of that. I'm saying that in the world of public opinion, how they manipulate it. No one is suggesting there would be an attack on Pope Francis. I was using the sad analogy of what's a few hundred tourists? Because St. Peter's Square in decades past has been filled with people from all four corners of the globe just to watch midnight mass at the Vatican at St. Peter's Square.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a fact. And whether certain governments are locked down or not, and in what phases or not, and what level of mask wearing or not, this is how do you focus? Well, that's how you divert, you create the crisis, and you lay out the solution. However, we are at December 23rd, 4:05 Mountain Time. I'm still holding true to my dollar wager with you, Backlash, and the double down last episode. We're at $2. I still don't think it's over back at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a little the BS tactics that are going on, which is scary. And I don't want to get away from what we've been talking about, because
No,
I'm getting more and more freaked out as I'm going through this. Because you brought up St. Peter's Square, which actually isn't a square at all.
St. Peter's Basilica, and yeah, no, the square, it's just that's what it's called. Many places in Europe have the town square,
Right.
but it doesn't. It's just
But it represents more of the occultic
Yeah, that's right.
BS that I've never. And it basically talks about, I'm talking about the wreath. Is another fertility symbol, circular.
Yeah, that's right.
Women's organs, the circle of life, and the candle in the center is a phallic symbol representation of man. And
Yeah, the
same
obelisk,
symbol-
which is right. The obelisk is in St. Peter's Square, just like it is in Washington,
Yeah.
D.C. That's like the sexual reproductive system of the sun god Ra. It's
Yeah.
all paganism.
And it's at the center of a 4,000-year-old Egyptian obelisk with a circle
Yeah.
around.
Yep.
From Egypt, the Circus of Nero in Rome, where it witnessed countless Christian martyrdoms and executions.
Joe, we've talked in the past about the media conditioning, how Hollywood, music, etc., they telegraph events in advance. How many, when Backlash brought up the obelisk, I'm thinking, how many of these doomsday movies across the world do we see when the meteor hits, the tidal wave goes, but the obelisk crumbles and falls? What does that symbolize? The obelisk.
Well, you know, yeah. Well, just like you were saying, they're telling us what they're going to do before it happens. So they do that with a lot of things. Like, for instance, the pinwheel in Seattle, that's kind of an obelisk too. That's an occultic kind of a statue as well. You see a lot of movies where they are going to take that down. You'll see it looks like it's crumbling around it. The world is crumbling around it. But what it really is, it's still a representation of what we're seeing going on right now with the Great Reset and the New World Order. That's what they want. So basically what they're telling us is, for them to do this Great Reset, for them to establish their New World Order, for them to establish their one world government, the world system as we know now has to crumble. It has to go down. But it's like the Phoenix bird, because you know what they do with the Phoenix bird? The Phoenix bird crashes in a pile of ashes and it rises again. So basically what they're saying is the world as it is right now is going to crumble. It's going to go to ashes, but it's going to rise again, bigger and powerful, more powerful than it's ever been with the New World Order and the one world government. So that's what those things all symbolize. You see it in movies, you'll see it in TV shows, you'll see it in ads. It's all over the place.
Backlash, are we out of time for this segment?
Yeah, I don't feel well.
We get to come back for the airing. Festivus wouldn't be Festivus without airing of the grievances.
Yes, yeah, we could do that.
All right.
We'll be back. I just actually picked up a little bit more on the Elf on the Shelf, which is scaring the living out of me right now. So we will be back with the last segment of the Conspiracy Keepers and the Christmas Eve show.